Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Please remember to like and subscribe. After breaking free, she never turned around. Jinger Duggar's change in 2025 is really astounding. She used to be subject to rigid fundamentalist regulations, but these days she leads a free, independent, and daring life. Here is how Jinger changed her destiny, including her marriage to Jeremy Vo and her contemporary way of living. Fans of Jinger Duggar are aware that her eagerly awaited second memoir, People Pleaser, Breaking Free from the Burden of Imaginary Expectations, was published in January 2025. To Becoming Free Indeed, her 2023 bestseller. Having grown up under the teachings of Bill Gothard's Institute in Basic Life Principles, or IBLP, Jinger continues her personal and spiritual reckoning with this new installment, exploring further into the psychological hold of her upbringing and removing the layers of religious pressure. While Being Free did initially introduce readers to the theological shift Jinger had undergone away from the strict fear-based doctrines of her childhood, People Pleaser offers an even narrative that is more intimate and emotionally vulnerable. In it, she discusses not just the lessons but also how they influenced her relationships, identity, and sense of value as someone who was always under pressure to live up to unrealistic expectations in order to be liked and accepted. Jinger was brought up in the Duggar family, a household that gained notoriety with 19 children in all, and was taught a very particular conservative version of Christianity that placed a strong emphasis on rigid power structures, utter obedience, emotional repression, and humility. She courageously explains in People Pleaser how the IBLP's doctrines ingrained in her a dread of disappointing God and other people to the extent that her entire identity became centered on living up to their expectations, whether they were real or imagined. She openly describes how, as a young child, she internalized the idea that any mistake could have dire repercussions from God. The need to win over people, particularly male authority figures, wasn't merely encouraged. It was upheld as a heavenly decree. Jinger talks about having worry and shame that kept her awake at night, afraid she had unintentionally crossed a limit. Performance, not elegance, was the direct determinant of her self-worth. The main focus of both of Jinger's works is her critical analysis of IBLP founder Bill Gothard. She goes into greater detail in People Pleaser on how his beliefs, which the Duggars assiduously adhered to, worked as a kind of spiritual manipulation. In Gothard's philosophy Complete Devotion to Authority, a rejection of external influences, and a long range of ideas that had little to no scriptural support but were frequently framed as biblical demands. According to Jinger, these beliefs were cult-like, not in the sense of worshipping a person, but rather because they dissuaded critical thought, kept adherents away from other influences, and preached that one's degree of obedience directly affected one's level of blessing or suffering in life. She describes how Gothard's interpretation of Christianity deviated from a personal connection with God, and less about following a strict formula for protection and blessing. Her observations are particularly potent because they are devoid of rage and derision. Rather, they originate from a place of profound sadness, lamenting the years she was buried beneath a facade of dread and shame as well as the damaged relationships brought on by legalism. She makes it clear that her goal is to describe how the system she trusted damaged her emotionally and spiritually, not to criticize her parents or her family. Jinger's unwavering dedication to upholding her fundamental Christian beliefs sets People Pleaser apart from other deconstruction memoirs. Instead of completely giving up on belief, she decided to sort through the harm and preserve the truth. She explains in the book how she started studying the Bible in a new way, one that prioritized grace, freedom, and truth over rule-keeping and shame, with the support of her husband Jeremy Vo and dependable mentors. She describes the drawn-out, agonizing process of giving up legalism and coming to believe that her performance is not a determining factor in God's love. She writes with increasing confidence, relishing the serenity she has discovered in understanding she no longer needs to be perfect to be accepted by God. Yet her tone is frequently humble, noting the struggle of unlearning deeply ingrained cognitive patterns. Jinger also discusses in People Pleaser how her people-pleasing behaviors impacted her marriage, friendships, and even her public persona. As a general figure, she was under pressure to keep up a flawless appearance, which frequently ran counter to her inner conflicts and questions. She talks about the consequences of smiling on camera while experiencing bewilderment and worry in private. She is remarkably honest. She asserts her freedom, but she doesn't say she has it all figured out. The flexibility to set limits, say no, be flawed, and let go of unreasonable expectations. The book offers a profoundly personal account, as well as a more general message for anyone who is feeling depressed by the pressure to live up to the expectations of others. People Pleaser is a significant departure from the Duggar family brand, even though Jinger refrains from openly criticizing her parents or siblings. By utilizing her voice to promote a more genuine, compassionate form of Christianity, she is not just reinterpreting her past but also transforming it. This biography is both a revelation and a reckoning for those who grew up watching her on TV. It's evident that Jinger has emerged as a prominent voice by January 2025. Amid a movement of ex-fundamentalists looking for solace and understanding. There is more to People Pleaser than just a memoir. It serves as a guide on how to maintain one's faith while eschewing fear, how to remain rooted in reality while eschewing harmful ideology, and how to cease living for other people's approval and begin living freely. Since leaving the public eye of the Duggar family, Jinger Duggar and her husband Jeremy Vuolo have made major efforts to create a life based on purpose, seclusion, and self-reliance. In 2024, the couple paid just under $2 million for a Tudor-style home in Santa Clarita, California, which served as one of the most iconic markers of their new phase. A choice that revealed a great deal about their current emotional, spiritual, and personal status. This house was more than just a property purchase. It was an announcement of indecision. For Jinger, whose early years were characterized by fleeting thoughts and habitual adherence to social norms, homeownership served as a symbol of permanence. Held significant personal significance in Santa Clarita. After years of challenging her background, dismantling damaging lessons, and altering her perspective on the world, establishing a home of their own meant more than just establishing physical roots. It was about asserting one's freedom, security, and agency. When Jeremy started studying the master's seminary in Los Angeles, the couple had already moved to California a few years prior. They eventually came to appreciate the West Coast's more leisurely beats, its variety of ideas, and the freedom it provided them from the ongoing scrutiny of media attention tied to Duggar. With its charming neighborhoods, top-notch schools, and close access to Los Angeles, Santa Clarita provided the perfect mix of opportunity and seclusion. Their new home was a stunning Tudor-style mansion that combined modern beauty with old-world charm. The house reflected their changing tastes with its wide internal plan, ornamental timbering, and steeply pitched gables. Traditional, grounded, but not at all like the strict minimalism of Jinger's previous existence. Inside, they combined classic design elements with their own personal additions to create a cozy and welcoming room for themselves and their two young kids. The house also functioned as a haven for Jinger, a place where she could rest, think, and continue to recover from the burden of her past self. Being physically separated from Arkansas was important enough, but having a permanent residence in California represented a point beyond which there was no turning back. This wasn't a temporary relocation. A sabbatical was not what this was. It was home. Another significant turning point in the Vos trip was the monetary investment. The roughly $2 million acquisition signaled a shift towards independence and modest success, driven by years of purposeful effort rather than fame or money from reality TV. Between Jinger's two best-selling memoirs, People Pleaser and Becoming Free Indeed, and Jeremy's writing, podcasting, and pastoral endeavors, the couple had steadily but slowly established a life. According to their own terms, performing for cameras under the cover of a large family compound was a thing of the past. Jinger and Jeremy may decide what to reveal and what to keep private in Santa Clarita. They were able to raise their kids free from the demands of family expectations and public scrutiny, thanks to their autonomy. The house became the setting for everyday peaceful moments, walks through peaceful neighborhoods, home-cooked meals, and nighttime rituals. Jinger finds it very significant, but others find it mundane. An additional, the tutoring style's English historical roots showed power and everlasting values, which Jinger wanted to incorporate into her post-Duggar life, adding another layer of meaning. The design indicated permanency even as it provided charm and nostalgia. In addition to buying a home in a nice area, the decision was made to establish their family in a location where they could develop, thrive, and create new customs without having to worry about their Jeremy's burdens. Always. He was deliberate in his choices and proud to have discovered a location that provided inspiration, safety, and space. The pair have frequently discussed the value of establishing a household based on truth, grace, and joy in interviews and podcast episodes. In many respects, this mansion came to represent those principles in tangible form. The Vualos were praised by their Santa Clarita neighbors as modest, grounded, and kind. Their current days are full with everyday routines and community ties, in contrast to their previous lives that were enmeshed in public spectacle. Jinger and Jeremy have exchanged fame for normalcy, which they both seem to be quite happy with, whether it be for grocery shopping, church services, or taking their girls to the park. Perhaps the most noticeable aspect of this change is Jinger's newfound quiet confidence. She is now physically, emotionally, and spiritually anchored in a life she has chosen for herself, when before she was afraid to speak her mind or to stand out from the crowd. The Santa Clarita home isn't a monument to prestige or prosperity. It serves as a place of sanctuary, a symbol of healing, and a reminder that freedom is more than just a literary idea. You are able to go through each room of the house you constructed from the ground up. With the birth of their third child, a son named Finnegan Charles Vuo, in March 2025, Jinger Duggar Vualo and her husband Jeremy Vualo entered a new chapter of happiness, development, and strengthened family ties. Finnegan was born on March 29th and weighed a healthy 8 pounds 1 ounce. His birth signaled a significant turning point in the couple's journey, not only as parents, but also as people who have made the decision to live a life based on love, authenticity, and purposeful family values. The announcement of Jinger's pregnancy in late 2024 sparked a wave of enthusiasm among family, friends, and fans. In contrast to her early adult life, which was a public spectacle, the Vualos decided to convey their news in a more private and delicate manner this time. Throughout the pregnancy, they maintained a friendly social media presence. Sincere and calm, they occasionally share hints of their excitement, while keeping much of the private voyage private for themselves and their girls. In late March, Finnegan finally made his long-awaited debut, not with a reality TV announcement or magazine spread, but with sincere Instagram posts that exuded happiness. In one particularly poignant image, the couple's 2 children, Felicity and Evangeline, were seen smiling and wide-eyed as they peered over the edge of the hospital bed. When they first laid eyes on their infant brother, the image of Jinger's mother, Michelle Duggar, tenderly holding Finnegan added to the moment's poignancy, and served as a poignant reminder of the intricate yet eternal ties that exist within the Duggar family. Jinger described the immense beauty of witnessing her girls grow into big sisters in her caption. "Nothing could have prepared me for the way their faces lit up when they saw that they've been practicing with dolls for months," she said. She explained how 3-year-old Evangeline was more enthralled by her brother's small toes and drowsy yawns, while Felicity, now 6 years old, enthusiastically offered to assist with changing nappies. For the Vualos, the name Finnegan Charles had particular meaning. Charles paid homage to a cherished family member on Jeremy's side, while Finnegan was selected because of its Irish heritage, reflecting a name that is both timeless and charming. In many respects, the name was the ideal representation of the couple's harmony between faith and modernity, tradition and freedom, both now and in the past. It was also another example of their changing parenting style, which was centered on creating a space of grace, warmth, and considerate connection rather than following the strict guidelines of Jinger's upbringing. Both Jinger and Jeremy conveyed their deep appreciation for a safe delivery and the blessing of a healthy baby boy in interviews after Finnegan was born. Jeremy, who frequently uses lyrical language, talked about his amazement upon meeting his son for the first time. "I experienced God's kindness in a fresh manner when he came into the world, weeping and strong. Our hearts are overflowing." In hospital pictures, Jinger was seen holding Finnegan in her arms, her hair pulled back, and her eyes full of passion. She was radiating with postpartum bliss. There was only genuine family happiness, no elaborate show. It was evident even in these early hours that the Volos had established a really caring and encouraging atmosphere for the arrival of their newest member. In Santa Clarita, back home, the 5-member family started getting used to their new routine. Jinger observed how this experience seemed different from her first 2 postpartum seasons. Despite the fact that the needs of caring for a newborn are universal, she felt more rooted, more assured in her job as a mother, and more capable of appreciating the passing moments now that she was in an emotionally secure environment surrounded by a life they had purposefully created. Weeks later, she pondered in a heartfelt essay saying, "It's the simple things, those 3 a.m. feedings when the globe." Jeremy mirrored this view, describing Finnegan's arrival as a refocusing of their priorities. "I don't want to rush through this. I want to hold on to every second. He is silent and wraps his hand around my finger." His calendar has always been packed with media activities and pastoral responsibilities. However, he suddenly found himself staying at home longer, choosing to spend more time with his son sleeping on his chest as the elder girls danced in their pajamas around the living room. 4 followers of Jinger's changed throughout time, from a young girl with 19 children and counting to a lady juggling the demands of legalism to a mother establishing her own unique brand of family and faith. It seemed like a complete circle moment when Finnegan arrived. This woman, who had previously been burdened by expectations, was now leading a life focused on serenity, love, and clarity. A lady who used to be afraid of going against the grain is now raising her kids with kindness rather than authority. Even though Jinger and Jeremy still safeguard the privacy of their kids, through careful selection of moments to share and avoidance of overexposure, they have provided a potent window into what recovery might entail, in legacy as well as in words. Cradled by his older sisters, his mother's smile, and his father's prayers, Finnegan Charles joins a family that has been changed, not by perfection, but by purpose. Jinger Volo's adult life is still intricately intertwined with her connection to her childhood, even if she no longer adheres to many of the beliefs that once characterized her. Globe, she hasn't cut all connections. As a result of growth, distance, and cautious reconnection, her relationship with the Duggar family and the expansive Arkansas property that served as the setting for a large portion of 19 kids, and counting instead continues to change and develop. Jinger provided a unique glimpse into this changing relationship in a mid-2025 episode of the Jinger and Jeremy podcast. She described a recent trip to the family's home in Springdale, which used to be very noisy, busy schedules, and the ubiquitous TLC camera teams. The most striking thing to her, though, was how much had changed. Many of her younger siblings had grown up and were entering adulthood with new roles, viewpoints, and more subdued demeanors. Once governed by a rigid daily routine and the principles of Bill Gothard's IBLP, the household she recalled appeared noticeably more restrained. Jinger spoke of the property with a calm detachedness rather than condemnation. She described its metamorphosis with interest and a hint of nostalgic bitterness, seeing how what had formerly been a well-oiled machine of religious recitation and discipline now appeared to be a more laid-back, even rustic family home. She revealed in a charming surprise that livestock, chickens, goats, and a few rabbits had taken up residence in the backyard, adding a touch of pastoral tranquility to the space that hadn't been there when she was a child. There were also fewer rules written on the white boards and fewer urgent footsteps resonating through the halls. Seeing animals, she smiled quietly as she ran freely through the backyard. In a sense, it represented a softening of the hard edges of the combination. Jinger observed that her kids, Felicity and Evangeline, enjoyed stroking the animals and weren't bothered by the significance of the grounds they played on in relation to the family's past. It was both comforting and unreal to watch children explore the same ground where she had once felt so trapped. It served as a reminder of her progress, and the fact that life had progressed without her having to fully disengage from her history. However, there were some complications with the visit. Even brief in-person reunions can be emotionally complex, Jinger acknowledged. Her public departure from the IBLP's doctrine and her memoirs, which have exposed her metamorphosis, have left unsaid tensions beneath the surface. Although the majority of her siblings continue to practice their religion to varied degrees, Jinger takes care to avoid pressuring or upsetting them. During the podcast, she made it clear that she is more interested in creating bridges rather than destroying them, even if certain discussions are prohibited. The common knowledge that things can shift without completely separating was what made this recent encounter stand out. Despite their different ways of living and views, Jinger and her family managed to unite via respect for one another, humor, and a few storytelling moments that weren't predicated on a common ideology. The emotionally charged visits of the past were a welcome change. Just people, no arguments, no sidelong glances. Reorienting when time and maturity have passed. During the program, her husband, Jeremy, also shared his thoughts on the visit. Despite the fact that he and Jinger had chosen rather different spiritual and lifestyle paths, he said he felt respected, and that the Duggars were friendly. In order to preserve their peace and respect their familial ties, the couple decided to keep their visit brief and pleasant rather than remain overnight. It was evident from Jinger's reflections that although her fundamental identity has changed, and she no longer harbors resentment towards her past. Instead, she sees it as a part of a lengthy arc, a foundation that gave her the ability to forge her own path despite its flaws and occasionally terrible moments. Her recollections of the compound no longer cause her to feel anxious, but rather prompt her to consider personal development, recovery, and the conundrum of loving people, yet having opposing opinions. As Jinger keeps creating a life based on spiritual independence and self-awareness, she has no interest in denouncing those who remain imprisoned in the society she abandoned. Rather, her recent return serves as a silent reminder that relationships can change, and that shared history can be remembered without being duplicated. And that's more than sufficient for Jinger. How do you feel about Duggar Jing? Please share your thoughts in the space provided below. We hope this video has been useful to you. If you enjoy it, remember to subscribe to the channel, share it, and give a like. I appreciate you seeing, and I'll see you in the next videos. Farewell.